Welcome to Security Live, live at reInvent 2024. We are so excited to have you here. My name is Brian Mendenhall. I am the, are you ready for this? The worldwide head of security and identity partner specialist organization at AWS, team of awesomeness. I think I got it.
Nailed it.
I'm here with my favorite co-host, Mr. Ryan Orsi.
Thank you for that heartwarming. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Orsi, one of your co-hosts for Security Live. I lead the team of partner specialists for security, identity, cloud operations. It means I can have a lot of fun with really cool companies all around the world. And speaking of some of those cool companies, we're joined by special guest Colin from Splunk, actually Mark Terenzoni from AWS. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello. How you doing?
Hey, great to be here.
Doing well. Glad you're here today. And maybe just to kind of kick things off, Colin, if you'd like to give an introduction about yourself and what you do at Splunk, and then we'll do the same with Mark.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Colin Gibbons. I am Director of Product Management at Splunk. I focus on the security side of the house. Right now, primary responsibility has been working with AWS over the course of the past few years on some of the integration work that we're going to be talking about. Outside of that, kind of a jack of all trades and master of none. Mark?
Hey, folks. Mark Terenzoni. I'm the Director of Risk Management. What that really means is my team is responsible for building services to help customers protect and defend their workloads while they run in AWS. So I'm mostly on the investigation and response side. So when an event happens, my teams and our services help customers figure it out rapidly.
I love that. Awesome. So it has been an absolutely busy week here at AWS. As we speak right now, this exact moment, Ruba, I believe Dr. Ruba Borna is giving her keynote announcement.
That's happening right now. Yes,
there are a ton of super exciting things that are going to be announced in that keynote. We also have some exciting things to talk about that have been announced this week as well, I believe, right?
Yes.
Do you guys want to kind of give everybody an update with what's happening?
Yeah, sure. So, one of the things that we announced November 5th as an official GA was what we call federated analytics for Amazon Security Lake. And essentially, that's what we're here to talk about, is the federated analytics. But we're doing all of our big announcements this week at reInvent. But yeah, it was officially GA'd November 5th.
And as you talk through that, try to say it. If you use acronyms, gentlemen, and you don't spell it out, you have to pay the swear jar. This is Brian and I. This is real gold. This is our tip. It's also our tip jar.
Okay.
So we want you to mess up, but let's have a little fun.
So it's acronyms.
Can I take this to the tables?
You can definitely take it. I can't guarantee that they will accept it. But acronyms and business language. So synergy, and it goes right in the jar. So anything like that. Otherwise, let's have at it.
Great. Jar's not that full, so we've got some work to do.
Got some work to do, guys. We do.
Yeah.
We do.
So just to expand on that integration, because as most of you know, Security Lake was built for the partner community. And what we envisioned was an opportunity for customers to leverage the partner solutions they've used for almost ever, but in a different manner where they don't have to move the data and they don't have to transfer the data into different places and they don't have to wrangle that data.
And why would they move and transfer the data? That's might be obvious to some, but maybe not to all.
Well, I think beyond moving it, first of all, security teams, we really want them focusing on outcomes and understanding what's happening in their environment. Way too often, they're spending time data wrangling,
right.
and they're having to manage data. And the reason that is because the data that drives their detections and response capabilities is highly voluminous. It's in multiple formats. It comes from multiple vendors in many cases, and it creates a significant challenge. So to start with, Colin's team and my team, as well as several other major security vendors, came up with a language for security called OCSF, Open Cybersecurity Schema Framework.
He did it.
I was getting so excited.
To really work agnostically across the industry and have that language for security solutions to talk to each other. We announced that several years ago, but we had a milestone a couple weeks ago where we actually moved that open source project to the Linux Foundation to give it far more visibility and structure. It's a vibrant community with 900 contributors and 200 plus companies that cut across all major security ISVs, government agencies, cloud providers, and end customers.
Oh, fantastic. Okay,
Yeah.
so but go ahead, Colin. Like,
Yeah,
tell us a little bit, how does this work? What does it do?
Well, and to expand on what Mark is saying, when we talk about like a lot of customers that are using Splunk as a logging platform and to perform security operations and threat detection, threat response, and all that stuff. When customers are ingesting data into Splunk, as you could imagine, all these various different log sources are all in various different schemas, formats, and stuff like that. So, one vendor might call it source IP, one vendor might call it source_IP, one vendor might call it, external IP. There's a lot of different ways that
my
they
blood pressure is
and stuff
increasing
like
right now.
Yeah, well, and prior to Splunk, I spent many years at Symantec, and we had a lot of different applications that were working off of a lot of different schemas. So the world needed to come up with a common schema, and that was one of the things that we kind of worked on together. That AWS adopted for Amazon Security Lake. Now, when we talk about, again, data in general, the amount of data that companies are dealing with, data sprawling and stuff like that. We know that customers are not going to send all their data into Splunk. It's just not going to happen for various reasons, And so, customers don't tend to send a lot of high volume, low fidelity data in Splunk. They typically want to send high fidelity, low volume data.
Right.
And so a good event source that comes up quite often in conversation is things like VPC flow logs or WAF logs.
Guarded you.
Exactly.
Sorry, so I've been battling this cold.
So it's kind of funny because when I was working with Mark on the integration between Splunk and Amazon Security Lake, the federated analytics, and we were out there meeting with a lot of very large customers, and the most common data set you hear from customers ingesting in Splunk is CloudTrail. And they will use enterprise security to launch detections against the CloudTrail data, looking for IAM, typically identity access management policy violations.
Nice.
Okay, but the thing is that what they don't typically send into Splunk is VPC flow logs. And when you ask a security person their use cases around VPC flow logs, they don't really have a really good use case, except for we need it when we need it. So this is a prime type of log data that they will store in Amazon Security Lake, but they still want to be able to have access to it during an investigation. And this is really where federated analytics comes into play. Mark?
Absolutely. And what we see happening here is customers open the aperture of the data that they need when they need it, as Colin mentioned, at a much different price point, right? So just as a reminder, when you turn on these sources of data for Security Lake, it's the same price you would pay just to enable the source to do the work yourself in S3.
Got it.
What we do at Security Lake is we take that, we convert it to OCSF, compress it in Parquet format, and apply iceberg table format on top. So you get the benefits of a structure of this data that provides a reasonably performant retrieval mechanism that now the customer can analyze that data, analyze the spectrum of all their data.
Right. So now, when you go to apply the analytics of your data, and the threat hunting exercise, it's all in the same place, right? Instead of disparate data source, I've got data over here, over here, over here. It's in different formats. I've got to dedupe, normalize, parse, grab it all, maybe send some of it to my analytics platform, and then also threat hunting. I've got to go reach back in all these data sources. Now we're saying that it's all reconsolidated. It's normalized, it's packaged. It's got a little Christmas bow on it.
It's a sounded pretty. I was getting excited.
I'm getting excited as well.
It's very seasonal. Very seasonal.
Yeah. So there's two main use cases that when I talk about federated analytics to customers, the two main uses that come up is threat hunting, being able to do ad hoc searching.
Sure.
So I've got my data in Security Lake. I want to be able to go look at the flow log data. I want to go be able to look at WAF log data. I want to be able to go look at. CloudTrail data or some data that's in Security Lake.
And they're proactively doing this kind of exercise. Okay.
Well, it's ad hoc. meaning that I've got an incident occurred. I want to understand all the traffic that happened around this compromised host.
Sure.
Now I can, from within Splunk, I can go launch a federated search, which goes out to Security Lake, searches for the data that I want to search for, brings it back, but without me having to leave the Splunk console and without me having to persist the data in Splunk. So I get the answer I need, and then I can, from that point on, determine what my next steps are. So there's threat hunting. The next use case is threat detection. This is, I've got data in Amazon Security Lake that I want to run enterprise security detections against, but I don't want to persist the data in Splunk. So I want to pull back the data out of Security Lake, store it in what we call a temporary index, and be able to run detections against that data to determine whether or not there's a match.
So now in the new era, which is just since November 5th, we don't have to duplicate and store multiple copies for all time.
That is correct.
I think that's amazing. I mean,
Huge.
People need to really clue into that, right? That is a very big deal.
Well, Ian, you get to use the same tool you've been using, the same query language, the same user interface, the same outcomes.
Oh, I mean,
without the movement of data.
There's the human element here, too.
Yes.
We talk about a lot of, like, people are trained and they're comfortable with certain tools and interfaces and workflows, and they've built automations and they've built scripts and everything on those tools. Let's not totally pull the carpet out from underneath them, right? Let's keep them in mind and try to make their jobs easier.
And the key thing is, it's giving users access to data that they did not have access to before.
Right.
So that's the key thing. If there's one thing I want people to walk away from, is like, now for within Splunk, I can search and I can run detections against data that was not in Splunk.
Because before it was predetermined, I'm going to pull this in, I'm going to index this, pull this in, and look at it, right? And it's there.
It stays there.
But now, but everything else is just out there. It's gone. It's somewhere else. And now we're saying the data ocean is there, not separate lakes of where I pull this in.
Did you just say ocean?
A data ocean. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know. It felt right, Martin. It felt good.
Absolutely, it's coming, right? I mean, the key point here, though, is really what Colin touched on, is that the analysts have wanted this data. It's valuable data. They just couldn't justify the cost to bring it in, fully index it, and for the 3 to 5 times a month or a quarter that they needed to go pull the information back. Now they can do that at a very low cost of what their storage price is for S3. So, and what I found in my journey with Colin too is, in many cases, the customers actually have turned on these data sources. They've stuffed them in places like S3, but they're not in a format they can use, and they have not been able to figure out how to query it and operationalize it. So they've incurred the cost, and they're not getting the value. Now we've given them no additional cost. Now you can incur the value.
And I would say the other main use case that comes up a lot of times with customers, especially large regulated customers, is around compliance.
Oh, interesting.
So if I'm a regulated customer, and I'm not going to start naming acronyms because I don't want to lose my coins, so I'm going to stay away from
the 24 karat.
I'm going to stay away from the regulated acronyms that everybody knows about. Payment card industry. So there you go.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
Nice.
I'm not going to go the other ones. But I mean, if I'm having to store data, and a lot of times these highly regulated customers and these compliance requirements require customers to store data 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And a lot of customers are not really utilizing Splunk. Splunk is hot storage. The power of Splunk is to store, index, query, be able to get an answer back in near real time. But these regulations have said, hey, you need to store data 3 to 5 years. And a lot of these, some of these regulations are coming back saying not only do you need to store the data for 3 to 5 years, you have to be able to access that data, and you have to, so before.
So prove it to us.
You have to
Put it on a hard drive and put it on a shelf.
Exactly. So before, before back in the day, when all these regulations came out, it was, okay, you need to have hot data for 90 days. And then you need to have warm or cold data for X amount of time. Well, there was nothing that really defined what the word warm or cold meant other than, hey, go back up the data and go stick it on the shelf.
Yep.
And then the auditor would come in and the guy would point out a backup tape and said, yeah, there you go. There's 3 years worth of data.
Which could have been a nice plastic case with styrofoam on the inside.
Maybe driven off in a truck to an undisclosed location.
Right.
Exactly. We have it. It's on the planet, but we're not sure where on the planet. Maybe it's actually some of it's on a thumb drive somewhere in someone's desk. I've actually seen customers do that. That is not a joke. Hang in there.
Well, with this, too, is another opportunity because with the data being there, you know, it's not just prove it. In many cases, you have to show on a regular cadence a report that validates it. So now they can automate those reports and have them and proactively show their auditors, here's the data, here's what we have, and here's the, you know, attribution of that.
Interesting. So security provability comes up in another conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I could technically pull the data from Amazon Security Lake into Splunk, into the summary index, run reports, run my dashboards against that data, save that report dashboard off to basically show my auditors, hey, I'm running these reports every 30 days. Here's the proof in the pudding. Right.
We are seeing a trend even on Security Live right at this particular moment that proving it to the auditors or the pre-compliance checks is a very big deal out there nowadays. And I love that you're all helping simplify that problem. And honestly, I'm picking up more control in our customers' hands instead of being beholden to these different data policies that are requiring them to incur cost and not extracting the value they need. They have a lot more control over what they want to do.
That's our goal.
That's it. And I love the piece that you talked about, the visibility, right? The visibility is not just the few things that you deemed high value into your analytics platform, into Splunk, but it's actually potential visibility across everything, right? And that is something we have seen over and over again at AWS as customers that say, I'm going to turn this on, I'm going to turn this off, I'm going to turn this on, but I'm going to send it over here. And now we can say, hey, it's okay. It's okay. You can turn it on. You can put it in the lake, and you can actually make that part of your threat detection and incident response program.
Yeah, and I would say 2 other use cases that come up quite often that I've heard from a lot of the large customers is being able to do retrospective analysis. So I think I got breached, or I did get breached, and I'm assuming that I got hit a year ago. You know, and so now I need to go back and search through a year worth of, processed data and network connection information that I've got that data in Security Lake.
More of a forensics kind of use case, but over a long time period.
Forensic retrospective over basically a long period of time.
And that's a big data problem in itself, right? That's a lot of information to sift through to try to trace back the essentially tracing backwards the attack path from like what happened.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at
who did it. Well, sometimes the way it happens is the customer doesn't even know they were breached.
Yes.
So they hear from the government, that hey, we think you've been breached, and here's why. And that's when that process starts. There's another adjacent use case as well, and we all know about these zero-day vulnerabilities and net new things that come out. Log4j is a great one, right?
Yep.
But they were in the environment and being exploited well before they were identified. So usually what happens is when they get identified, everyone puts a policy in place, and now we detect it, and from today forward, we know where there's a potential impact. But very few times a customer can actually go back prior to when it was identified and say, hey, was I potentially attacked based on this previously?
Right.
And it's similar to this, but it's usually probably not as far back as a year, but it's in relative cycle. And that closes the loop for customers. They can now say, okay, today, moving forward, I'm covered. We validated historically that we have never been owned on this particular issue.
Excellent example of partnerships between AWS and Splunk, bringing value to everyone out there. Mark, Colin, thank you for joining us, folks. Everyone stay tuned. We'll be right back with IBM.
Thank you.
Thanks all.